Charlie McAvoy will not be in the lineup for Team USA's big rematch against Canada on Thursday.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things. Today is Tuesday, February 18th, and I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine. Free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Now, today on the podcast, we're going to discuss the breaking news of Charlie McAvoy being ruled out of the Four Nations face-off final against Canada on Thursday due to injury. We'll also talk about the weekend's action and touch on Brad Marchand, Elias Lindholm, Jeremy Swayman getting a chance to suit up, not yet playing. The Bruins are also getting back to practice here on Tuesday, and we're looking forward to them getting back on the ice and in game action on Saturday against the Anaheim Ducks. Now, let's begin with the breaking news, and it was curious yesterday that Charlie McAvoy was ruled out of Team USA's game against Sweden. Curious to me at first because it was explained just as a scratching or a replacement. Jake Sanderson stepping in for McAvoy. Of course, the game was in Boston. His father-in-law is the head coach. To have just scratched him would have been indeed a bit of a head scratcher, especially after the strong game that he played against Canada on Saturday with some jaw-dropping hits on Connor McDavid, Sidney Crosby, and others. It was later reported by Ty Anderson, I think I saw it from him first, that McAvoy's status was in doubt for the final. Frank Zaravelli this morning reported that McAvoy had been admitted to hospital on Monday night with an infection that stemmed from a minor injury. Zaravelli added he's fine. There's no long-term concern. McAvoy's status for Thursday's final has not been ruled out, undetermined. Now, what did I say just last week? You can get reports, rumors from all over the internet from verified reporters, but it's always important to wait for the official source to chime in. And the Bruins this morning released the statement saying that Charlie was indeed admitted to Mass General on Monday to undergo testing related to an upper body injury sustained during the Four Nations face-off. Pause there to note that this was not the same injury that he was battling through prior to the Four Nations face-off. This is a injury newly sustained during the tournament. He's currently being evaluated by Boston Bruins head team physician, Dr. Peter Asnes. He will not play for Team USA in the Four Nations face-off championship game on Thursday at TD Garden. The Bruins announced the team will provide further updates on his condition and status as soon as they become available. Obviously, a massive disappointment for McAvoy, a massive hit to Team USA's blue line, seeing as Charlie was indeed one of their more effective blue liners, physically at least, against Canada on Saturday. Again, that huge game-changing hit on Connor McDavid. McDavid had scored that beautiful goal on Connor Hellebuck. He's trying to get into the zone once again. McAvoy absolutely trucked him along the boards. And then 30 seconds later, Jake Gensel scores the game-tying goal. It was USA who took it from there. Last night's game against Sweden was not a must-win for Team USA. They had already clinched a spot in the final. Sweden did come out on top, but it didn't really matter because the U.S. had already clinched their spot in the final, which will be Thursday at 8 p.m. But when you look ahead, you had Matthew Tkachuk, who didn't play yesterday for Team USA. Austin Matthews sat out yesterday's game. Brady Tkachuk left that game with a lower body injury, and now you add Charlie McAvoy's absence on top of that. Obviously, it's a big advantage for Team Canada, who, they've sustained injuries of their own, right? Shea Theodore's gone. Cale Makar has been in and out with illness. Hopefully he's good to go for Thursday's game from a Canada perspective. But, it is somewhat curious that General Manager Don Sweeney is, of course, leading Team Canada right now in a management spot. And the Bruins, the team that he manages at the NHL level, seemingly making the decision to call it a tournament for McAvoy and take him out, rule him out for Thursday's game. The Tkachuk brothers look like they will play on Thursday, but McAvoy out, and it looks like Team USA is talking to the NHL to see if they can get an injury replacement. Now, bigger picture for the Bruins, their slim playoff hopes take a huge hit here if McAvoy is not able to come back even on Saturday. They're on the outside looking in. McAvoy had missed some time earlier this season, or just not even that long ago, had come back and was looking pretty good for this team. But if he is out for any length of time, then their already slim playoff hopes take a huge hit. Maybe Elias Lindholm comes back and eases some of that sting for this team, but they need all hands on deck at the moment if they even have a prayer of making it back into the playoff picture. And the most important thing here is that McAvoy is okay. Scary to hear a player is hospitalized, undergoing tests, possible infection. Those are not things that you want to hear in any circumstance for any player. And we wish McAvoy a speedy recovery, a full recovery, all the best. None of the hockey stuff matters right now in light of a player being hospitalized, of course. McAvoy's a new dad. Scary thing. It's obviously disappointing for him to have to sit out the final game, especially how impactful he was in the previous game against Canada. Obviously, it's a risk to have these kind of high pressure games, high stakes games in the middle of a season. And we've already seen some injuries suffered at this tournament. Shea Theodore, like I mentioned, he's out, probably coming back closer to the playoffs, might be an LTIR kind of replacement that Vegas can benefit from. But still, for the Bruins' sake, again, they can't afford to be missing their best defenseman for any length of time. And if he is not able to play on Saturday, that's clearly a concern for the Boston Bruins. And maybe, the Bruins prioritizing their slim hopes over Team USA's chances of winning this, in the grand scheme of things, not very important tournament, although you would not get that sense if you just came from outer space and watched these games. You would think that it's kind of life or death based on watching this tournament so far. It's been fantastic. So that's the latest on Charlie McAvoy, ruled out of the final between Canada and USA on Thursday. A spot in the final was earned by Team Canada on Monday with the win over Finland. We'll touch on that action and what our boy Brad Marchand was able to do in that game here as the podcast continues. In sports, having a winning strategy is everything. It's how the best teams make it to the Super Bowl, the World Series, and the Olympics. The same goes for life. Having a strategy like life insurance from Select Quote can protect your financial legacy and keep your family's future secure. Select Quote makes it easy to find the perfect life insurance policy. As one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, they've helped over 2 million customers find $700 billion in coverage since 1985. If you're in good health, you might even qualify for same-day coverage up to $5 million, no medical exam required. It's more affordable than you think. You can get up to $1 million in coverage for as little as $20 a month. Get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/lockedonnhl. Go to selectquote.com/lockedonnhl today to get started. That's selectquote.com/lockedonnhl. They shop and you save. Thank you so much once again for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine. Please do subscribe if you have not already on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. And get the notifications. Tell a friend about the podcast today as well. Now, Team USA had already advanced to the final thanks to that win over Canada on Saturday. It didn't really matter what happened in the game against Sweden yesterday because they had already accrued enough points to finish at the top of the 4-team pool. Canada, however, was not guaranteed a spot in the final after that regulation loss. They needed to beat Finland, ideally in regulation, to get the full 3 points. Finland, on the other hand, also could have made the final if they had beaten Canada in regulation. But as it happened, Canada jumped out to a massive, well, not massive, but they jumped out to a lead early on in this one. Connor McDavid scoring 4:13 into the first period. Nathan MacKinnon scoring less than a minute later. And that was, you would think, a really good start to put them well in the driver's seat. Braden Point made it 3-0. Nathan MacKinnon scored his second to make it 4-0. But Team Canada has had a knack for making things perhaps more interesting than they needed to be. Jordan Binnington in net for them. Not always the top choice, you would think. Finland was able to cut the lead to 4-3 with a minute and a half to go. But Sidney Crosby scored the empty netter to seal the deal for Canada and send them to the final. Brad Marchand got a bit of an uptick in ice time in this one. He saw 14 minutes and 13 seconds of ice time, which was fourth fewest among all forwards, more than Sam Bennett, Mitch Marner, who curiously had only 12 minutes and 46 seconds, Travis Konecny with 12:11. So a bit more balanced ice time for John Cooper, but he still gave his Tampa players the edge over those four that I mentioned. Marchand had 2 hits in this one, 2 giveaways, 0 takeaways. He was a -1 on the day. I would love to see him getting more prime time alongside a guy like Sidney Crosby, with whom he has some chemistry. An all Nova Scotia line with Marchand, Crosby, and MacKinnon. I'd love to see at least once in the final game. Those guys trained together in the offseason, and it would be cool to see them. But the story, again, was Jordan Binnington, who stopped only, let's see here, 23 of 26 shots, an .885 save percentage, and the Bruins, Team Canada is just stuck playing this guy now. They can't replace him with a guy who hasn't played in over a week. They left 3 of the top 5 save percentage goalies in the NHL this season off the roster. Logan Thompson, it is reported, was left off the roster because of issues with Bruce Cassidy and Pete DeBoer, the current and former head coaches of the Vegas Golden Knights, with whom Thompson played before this season. Darcy Kemper, Mackenzie Blackwood, all having fantastic seasons. Whatever reason, Team Canada has gone with Binnington and stuck with him, and they are indeed stuck with him for Thursday's huge rematch between Canada and the USA, which will be super entertaining to be sure. Of course, we did not have any Bruins playing for Team Finland, who put in a good showing at this tournament. Esa Lindell, Michael Granlund scoring for this team. Some great players on Team Finland, but they just were not able to get the job done against Team Canada, a team that was not going to be denied that spot in the final and a chance to atone for the loss on Saturday night. I should also note that Marchand had the opportunity to be interviewed by Tuukka Rask, who was part of the TNT panel yesterday. Rask saying it was a pleasant surprise, and then Marchand said being interviewed by him was a treat. Rask asked him, you're a leader on your own team. You're one of the oldest guys in the Canadian locker room. What kind of role did you take this year in this tournament? Are you more like a pom-poms out cheerleading, or are you mentoring the younger guys? Marchand kind of joked, watch it. But he said a little bit of everything. You know how it goes when you're the older guy, you try to keep it light. They have a great group. It's a lot of fun being in there. We've seen clips from Marchand mic'd up in the locker room. They're trying to keep the energy high. You feed off a lot of these guys. Everybody's so excited to be here. So much energy in the room. They've all pretty much played together at some point, so they all kind of had some relationships, which makes it easier too. Very cool to see Rask and Marchand together again. And unfortunately, Rask's home country was bounced from the tournament. Canada will go on, and that's a game we'll, of course, preview more in depth later on this week as we get ready for Thursday's huge rematch between Canada and the USA. Team Sweden was eliminated from the tournament. We'll touch on Elias Lindholm here as the podcast continues. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on that than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action. If you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. Whether I'm backing my team for a late game rally or picking up a player to hit a clutch three, I never feel like I missed my chance. FanDuel's app is so easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. New FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So Sweden beat USA on Monday, but as I mentioned, USA had already clinched their spot, so it didn't really matter. And while Canada and USA finished level with 5 points, it was Canada who got to move on because they had the tiebreaker against Team Sweden. Now, for the USA, it was Chris Kreider who got on the board for them early on, 35 seconds in. Kreider scoring a big goal at TD Garden, just as we already are all expected to happen, just not in black and gold. Elias Lindholm got a delay of game penalty, shooting the puck over the glass. Team USA was not able to take advantage of that, but it kind of typified his tournament as he was held off the score sheet. was a -1 in this one. 17 minutes and 34 seconds of ice time, which was a nice bump, but he did not get a shot. He got one shot on goal, 3 hits, playing more of a defensive role in this tournament, not recording a point, and it just kind of typified his season so far. Just very underwhelming. Sometimes not very noticeable out there. And it's just unfortunate that he is tied to this big contract for the foreseeable future because he's already 30 years old. The Bruins are on the hook for quite a while here at a very high cap hit. That will look a bit better as the cap goes up, but still, I was hoping that Lindholm would put in a bit of a better showing playing with Sweden, where it's a bit looser, a bit more familiar of an environment. Hopefully he can come back or remain in Boston and show more of what he can do back with the black and gold. But unfortunately, there wasn't much to build on there in this tournament. Jeremy Swayman did dress in this one as Jake Ottinger's backup with a very cool Bruce Springsteen theme mask. Ottinger, 2 goals on 23 shots. Sweden had a disadvantage in shots, outshot 33-23. And again, Elias Lindholm just kind of underwhelming here for the Team Sweden, as he has done all season long for the Boston Bruins. Now, the Bruins are gathering for practice here on Tuesday, their first practice in quite some time, seeing as a lot of the players have been off on vacation. Mark Diver, who had his eye on the Providence Bruins, was reporting that Michael DiPietro and Georgi Merkulov were not at Providence practice. So perhaps DiPietro coming up with Swayman off with Team USA, Merkulov coming up with Marchand, Lindholm probably not there to begin the season. Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting return for the Bruins. Those two paths still very much on the table. Don Sweeney a couple of weeks ago had said that if they have more injuries or don't do a job between now and the deadline, then they may have to take a different path. We're getting an injury here from Charlie McAvoy that may or may not carry back into game action. They have a very tough schedule in March. So the seller's path seems more and more on the table for the Boston Bruins. Again, very disappointing that McAvoy will not play in that game. You want to have the best on the best, but we wish him the best and hope for a speedy recovery. Very scary always to hear that someone is in hospital, and it's good that it's just a upper body injury, perhaps just a bit of an infection, and hopefully he's able to make a full recovery and come back sooner than later for the Boston Bruins, if they have any hope of making the playoffs. Obviously, Team USA's chances take a hit without McAvoy. The Kachucks should be in there. We'll keep an eye on all the latest with respect to the Four Nations stuff as the week continues. And I hope you're all having a good week so far. We had a holiday up here in Canada yesterday, as you did in the States. We helped some family move in the country. The roads were insane, but we made it. Not in time to watch the hockey game, but still good to check that out. White Lotus is back, so that was a treat on Sunday night. It's a snow day again here, even though it's sunny. We're just doing what we can to press on here on Locked On Boston Bruins because we're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and that means your favorite team every single day. We also have the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, which you should check out to get the advantage in your league once NHL play resumes on Saturday. And I encourage you all to take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and please do Subscribe to the podcast if you have not already. We'll be back tomorrow with a brand new episode of Locked On Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your favorite team every single day. Take care, friends.